You're listening to the Gutsy Podcast, where we talk about all things real, raw, and ridiculous about running a business authentically. Whether you need an inspirational pick-me-up or a swift kick in the mental ass, the Gutsy Podcast is your bi-weekly guide to getting out of your head and back into action. I'm Laura Ora, branding and mindset coach for female entrepreneurs, CEO of Works & Co., and your host on this journey through entrepreneurship. It's time to fuel your Gutsy. The startup phase is exciting, full of energy and planning. You're taking a really big leap and have probably mapped out all of your goals, your plan, and your strategy. After a while, that newness starts to wear off, but you're still growing and expanding. Have you put that same new energy into your growth plan? Are you paying yourself? Or are your numbers kind of all over the place? First of all, take a deep breath. It's okay. No judgment zone here. That's why we're here together today. We're talking with Connie Vanderzanden about planning for the growth phase so you can start paying yourself, my friends, and have a cash positive business. Connie is a cash flow and business mentor on a mission to help female entrepreneurs live the lifestyles they desire by learning the simple steps, structure, and discipline to create and save money. With 34 years of accounting and bookkeeping experience, a variety of industry knowledge, and her own real-life growth journey since 2001, Connie developed the Going Beyond Revenue Cash Handling System, focused on cash flow planning and creating profitable and sustainable businesses. I can't wait to talk money with you today. Connie, welcome to the Gutsy Podcast.
Thank you, Laura. I'm so happy to be here. I love podcasts with snarky names.
Yay! Awesome. Well, you're in the right place, my friend. Snarky should be my middle name. So I read all about your journey and your story. I love how transparent and vulnerable you are with it online and on your website. Give our listeners the backstory. What got you into your business? And I'd love to hear, what ultimately has led you to where you are today.
Sure. So I started my business in 2001 because I was in the accounting industry. I was in tax, and I got just tired of always being busy as the staff accountant. I was busy from January through October while the tax pros were in and out during that whole season. And I was really not happy there. But what I really did enjoy was going out to clients' offices or restaurants, and I could see an immediate weight lift from their shoulders when I would go out. And so that's what I based the business on. Back in 2001, I did a lot of on-sites, a lot of bookkeeping. And then, fast forward another 14 years and realize, wow, I dislike accounting so much.
Well, that's a realization to have.
Yes. And it's hard when you've built a career in this business on something you really don't like. But numbers were super easy for me. And so it was just something I could do. And it made a lot of sense to me, but it did not bring me joy. And so when I really thought back, what brought me joy was that one-on-one conversation with the business owners. And so my gift is to make numbers easy for people. And so I bring that into the conversation. And also the fact that when I went to grow the business, got commercial space, hired a team, I had no plan. I didn't pay myself for 6 years, and I got into debt of over $50,000. And so I had to learn how to dig myself out of that hole. And the cash handling system came into play at that time. And just growing and learning about myself and about the relationship I had with money, and then how I was using my business to create that sustainability. It's been an interesting journey, not one that I was always willing to share with others. One that I felt like, gosh, as an accounting professional, didn't I know that this was going to happen? And the reality is that some of us just don't look at numbers or interact with them in the same way. And so how do I bridge that gap now to show people how they can do it with all the book learning and education I have around numbers, but also what's your inside story telling you too around money and numbers? And So it's a fun journey to do this now. But yeah, it was an interesting business to have.
You walked the whole path and you went the whole journey. I applaud you because I know that so often, especially in what we teach, we feel like we have to have it all together.
Mhm.
We have to know all the things, we have to have it perfected, we have to like basically, have things in perfect order. And A, that's just not reality.
No.
And B, I mean, we teach what we most need to learn, right? And so I love that you shared your behind the scenes journey, that, even though that you're in the financial world, your financial world at one point of time was not in great shape,
Mhm.
and you too can overcome it.
Yes, yes. And it's about willing to look at your relationship with money. For a long time, I think uh, we should all over ourselves about how we're supposed to show up in business and how we're supposed to be with numbers. And the reality is, a lot of those people that are set those rules for us have a very different way of looking at numbers, maybe come from a very masculine background, and their relationship with how they were raised with money totally different than what a female entrepreneur might experience. And so it's not that females can't do numbers. We might have been told that in school. It's just that we are going to approach it from an entirely different point of view, and to be okay with that and to really lean into that, to your intuitive knowledge around it. And then again, getting some education so that you're better prepared as you move forward in life.
Right. So what would you say was some of the shifts or the biggest shift that happened inside of you to change your relationship with money? Because I would assume something had to make a shift for you to, look at all of that and say, okay, I need to do something differently.
Yeah. There were quite a few mindset shifts around that, but a lot of it ended up being around worth, which is a common mindset roadblock a lot of people will hit, especially if you're in the selling your services for a dollar amount. So when you want to go to raise your rate, worth will kick in. And I had worth kick in the other day, which was quite surprising. I thought I had healed that wound. And so it just showed up in a different format. And I was like, oh, hi, I know you.
There you are. Oh, I'm familiar with you. Okay, what do you need this time?
Yes. Yes, but worth was the biggest one. I would tell people, I would even tell people what I do. Oh, I'm just a bookkeeper, or I just do this. I would minimize what I was doing and what my special sauce was, and I would not take the money. And again, a lot of it was martyrdom around it, about watching my mom and my grandmother, the women in my life, make do with small amounts and not really have a big dream or wish for what they wanted to create, and especially not having money show up for that. It was funny. I was just this week, somebody was telling me about birthday wishes, about how we were raised to, make a wish on your cake, but don't tell anybody. Don't tell anybody your wish. And I was like, oh, wow, there's a whole nother thing to go down, is that we've been so ingrained that we can't tell other people our big dreams. And that's the key piece too, is that we need to share our dreams and talk about how money's going to support that dream, so that we have more people out in the universe and in the world helping us to reach those goals and open up the doors. And so there were a lot of mindset shifts I had to kick through. But the other big piece was that to recognize I was a spender. And this happens for a lot of entrepreneurs. We have a higher risk factor than many of our employee mindset partners or employees, even, or team members. And as a spender with a high risk factor, I'm going to prioritize. It makes me feel good to spend money. It makes me feel good to do these things. And so I had to find a way to be with money and honor my inner spender, because if I don't honor her, she rebels and gets me all into credit card issues. And then I have to figure a different way out. So if I can honor her through the process, then she's much happier, she's taken care of, and then the business can be more sustainable. So I had to find ways of creating the cash handling system, creating a profit account so I could do a quarterly distribution, or being really honorable with what I was doing with my money when I wanted to, creating a money Monday where every week I have to move my money, just so that I'm paying attention to it. So a few things over a period of time. It was 3 years there of building the cash handling system. Were a couple of the things I did.
Wow, I absolutely love that you brought up recognizing that you're a spender, but then also that you honored her. Like,
Yeah.
it's not about smacking her on the back of the hand and being like, no, you're bad, but you're honoring her. I just think that that's so beautiful.
Thank you. Thank you. Well, so many of the entrepreneurs I meet come in feeling that they are broken. And it's you're not broken. It's that somebody in the account, as most accounting people are number focused people. They tend to be great at saving. They don't recognize what spenders go through. They don't recognize that high risk factor when it comes to being an entrepreneur. There's nothing broken. We just have to figure out the best way to honor that and work with it as a strength, because a spender can do a lot of great things with money, and we are more than willing to put it back out into the communities, back out into our team members, and make sure that they have livable wages. It's about finding a happy balance between the two.
Amazing. That's what it boils down to is the happy balance.
Right.
And I love that you said that, no one, they're not broken. You
No.
you guys listening are not broken by any means. You just have areas to learn more and to grow into, your numbers. And um, education is so incredible. I think so many people start a business, myself included, raising my hand. I had no freaking clue what I was doing. I didn't know. I had zero money training. I had zero business training. And it's just like you just kind of wing it until you realize what works and what doesn't. And then you adjust accordingly.
Yeah. Yeah. Even with my numbers background and watching so many small businesses before I started my business, it's funny how, because I wasn't raised by an entrepreneurial family, I didn't have any mentors. I had to relearn all of those same processes that every small business goes through. So even with the knowledge background, it didn't prevent me from any roadblocks that businesses go through. Um, but it does help to smooth the edges a little bit, so I can know that they're coming now, or that I can plan for it a little bit more. I can be in the numbers, because a lot of entrepreneurs, well, there's two different kinds. There's one that likes numbers. They can make decisions really quickly. And the other one uses their voice a lot. These are the coaches and consultants. And they don't really want to be in their numbers. They want to be more relationship based. They want to create relationships with their team members and their clients, and be connectors. And so for those guys, we just need to find a method, like using some color with their numbers to make it more visually appealing, so that they'll spend some time with their numbers and create a relationship there. And so it's funny that we have to pay attention to all of those things as we're building our business, so that we can use the numbers, being more empowered with the numbers, so that money can follow, and we can give it a job and let it know how to support us as we move forward.
Yeah, that brings up such a good point. I operated my business up until 2 years ago, claiming that I'm not a numbers person. Ha ha ha. Right? Like I would literally preach this, like, oh, I don't get into that stuff. I'm not a numbers person, whatever. Until I almost lost everything. And then all of a
Mm.
sudden I had a real big freaking wake up call, and I became a fucking numbers person very, very quickly. So it's about understanding how you do numbers, right?
Mhm.
Like you said, how making it unique for you. There's some basic principles and things, but I don't know, there's one of my favorite thing. I created a money day. Like you mentioned Money Monday. I
Yep.
do no brawl Sunday, and that's when I do my money management. And you create a routine around it that's exciting for you, and it makes you actually like I love looking at my numbers now. I never in a million years thought I would ever say that.
Love it. Love it. Yeah. And I think, how did you build that habit? Did you use rewards for yourself, or did you find out different ways that money could support as you move forward? What did you find out the most that you liked about your numbers?
What I liked most about it was I felt like I was in control again,
Yeah.
because when it's out of sight, it's out of mind.
Mhm.
And when you're not paying attention to it, when you're ignoring it, when you're shoving it in the desk drawer, when you're like, I'll get to that next week, and before you know it, it's been 6 months, you're not in control. And so you don't know what's going on with your numbers. And therefore, how are you going to achieve the goals that you want to if you don't even know where you're at today?
Yeah.
And so at first, it wasn't exciting. I didn't like it. I literally had to force myself. And I'm like, okay, let me just build a routine. And so on Sundays, I would just start going down into my office and entering in receipts and reconciling and just putting things in and scrolling through. And each week, month after month, I would like literally have to force myself to do it. And until one day, one Sunday, wasn't able to, and I was like, oh, this doesn't feel right. And I was like, haha, I have built a new habit. I have succeeded. And now it's a no-brainer. Like my family knows that Sunday is money management day, and it doesn't take me near as long now as it did back then, right? Like back then there was a lot to configure and shift around and just building that habit. Now, I mean, 30, 40 minutes tops each Sunday. I mean, it really doesn't take a lot of time, but I'm in control of it now. I know what's coming in, I know what's going out, I know what's been paid, I know where I'm at for the year. Like I have knowledge, and knowledge is powerful, and I like being in that energy.
Yeah. 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 I often refused to look at my numbers for many years in the business. And every time I would refuse, I would have all these credit card issues. All my credit
Yep,
cards would be maxed out, and they would, especially act up when I was traveling, which is nothing more than
always.
annoying.
Always. That's the only time that they act up.
Yes, yes, but it is control with um with my numbers by making sure I spend time with them every week. I'm more empowered with them. When I first started, I wanted control over. I wanted to dominate them. I wanted
Yes.
to, and that is such a masculine feeling, and I had to let go of that through the process, as well as like, no, we're in relationship with this. We're as women entrepreneurs, we have this ability to manifest and go out and create what we want. You just have to know what that number is. When we pull numbers out of the sky, I remember my first mastermind, I was sitting in there and everyone else said, oh, I want $10,000 a month. I said, oh, that sounds good. That's what I want to do.
Sure, I'll have that as well. I'll have whatever she's having.
Yeah. And the problem is that money's like, okay, what are we going to do with it? Money really wants to know what its purpose and job is. And so by identifying and knowing what those numbers are, and like really claiming how money is going to support you, I think that's the big thing to get over, is like, it's okay to want. It's okay to like say you want to have a better life, that you want to add more to your community, that you want to add team. You just have to have some type of idea of what that number is so that you can like create around it. And that's what these money management times are for.
Yes. And I think that the hardest part is that first step, is when you start looking, is
Yeah.
when you really like dig into the numbers, because shame pops up, guilt pops up, fear pops up. I should have done better. I should have done this. And like you said earlier, we shit all over ourselves.
Mhm.
And I think it's really important to make sure that you give yourself grace and know it's okay. This Whatever numbers you're looking at is not defining you. You're actually really in a beautiful space of looking and starting to take control so that you can shift it, so that it doesn't stay like this forever, so that it doesn't become a bigger problem, so that you don't end up losing something. Like you're taking your power back and fueling yourself with knowledge. You're doing the hard part now so that it's much easier for a much longer period of time.
Yes, I agree.
There was something that was on your website that resonated so deeply with me, and that was everything looked good on the outside, but you were miserable.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like to pick up on those nuggets. Tell me
Yeah.
about what that timeline, that period felt like, and how, yeah, just tell me about that.
Yeah. And it's funny as that was probably one of the wounds I took the hardest to heal as I grew my business. But yes, I would, I ran a local networking group. I created a bookkeepers networking group. I was in this leadership role and showing up for businesses, and everyone thought, because I had a team and I had commercial space, I must be successful. And behind the scenes, it was anything but successful. It was still hustle. It was still not, I wasn't paying myself again, and the debt was constantly increasing. And if that was success, I want a new definition. And every day, I mean, I would go out and on the outside, I looked professional and I approached people, and I was doing great. And those little white lies you tell out in public, that we don't really talk about what's going on behind the scenes or what our money story is in a networking environment, or at least the networking environments I was doing at the time. Nowadays, I have been able to find more nurturing type of areas that we talk about what our numbers actually are, what our dreams are. But at the time, it was very exchange business cards and move forward. Yeah. But yeah, it was hard. And then, of course, when instead of selling bookkeeping business, which is a commodity, and there's lots of bookkeepers out there's different price models, and I was selling the team and not necessarily myself. But when I changed into a more coaching format with this mentoring and cash handling system, I was selling myself. And so being a fraud, I was like, how can you do this? How can you sell the solution when you failed at it for so long? And that's part of the thing is as being a mentor, and why I don't call myself a coach, being a mentor means that I've gone through all the crap. I've had those roadblocks. I've been on the floor crying my eyes out, and I'm going to be able to recognize when that may come up for you. And we're going to talk honestly about it. So these days I talk very differently about where my business is at in public. And it's about creating the community to help hear those stories.
Oh, I love that empowering shift that you took with it, because you're so right. It's like, who am I to, right? Like I screwed up this and I didn't do that. And, I'm crying about stuff. And look, that resonated with me so deeply because I was in the same place. But I love that shift of like, hey, I went through that and I'm open with it, and I can recognize when this might be headed your direction.
Yeah.
Or I recognize the things that you're saying because I used to say those things to myself. And it gives you such empowerment. I think it's so cool how, it's not awesome that we have to go through some of these challenging things, right? Like, could have gone that a different way, universe, thank you. But I find it so intriguing that you went through that, but now you're teaching others. And now you're helping others to either eliminate that or shorten that time frame, and helping them to empower themselves in their own business.
Thank you. Yeah, it's just part of the journey. Again, when I first started looking at this, I was ashamed of what I had created, where I was at. And then looking back a couple years later, I was like, oh, wait, I was meant to have these roadblocks. I was meant to go through these painful period of time. And I was meant to heal this relationship, because this is really my purpose. My actual life purpose is to make numbers easy for people and to educate and share in this fashion, because that's how I'm not going to go out and give you the exact formula to save yourself. No, I'm going to just give you the rope. I'm going to help you walk forward. But again, you have to be empowered and willing to save your own skin and use some tools to find your way out. But I'm going to walk right beside you and help you with whatever we can to find the right tools.
Oh, that's beautiful. I love it. Do you love taking those quizzes? You know which ones I'm talking about. The ones that tell you which Disney princess you are and what your name reveals about you. What if I told you that I could pinpoint exactly where you are unintentionally giving away your power in your business? This is what I like to call a power leak. Think of it like having the heat blaring in the middle of winter, but the back window has a crack in it and all of the cold air is coming in. Guess where all your energy is going? Out the back window. The same goes for your power leak. These spaces, your mind, time, voice, presence, or money, are your biggest opportunity for growth. If you're ready to learn where you are unintentionally giving away your power, go to lauraora.com and take the free Power Leak quiz. 11 questions, less than 5 minutes, and a whole lot of self-discovery and opportunities await. So, at the surface, we all know why this next topic is important, but I feel like there's so much more to it. Tell me why it is so essential to pay yourself. Because I know that there are listeners right now that are not paying themselves, and it's okay. Love you, but let's learn about the importance to this. It's way more than just you need money to live, right? That's kind of the given. Talk
Yes.
to me about the depths of what this is.
Yeah. So we have to share a story around it first. It's that I thought I was kind of paying myself. The business was transferring money on a regular basis to pay down my personal credit card. And I went to a mastermind, and my coaches had me on a hot seat, which is, if nobody's been to a mastermind, a hot seat is you're in front of a room and everyone's looking at you, and the coaches are usually off to the side and asking you questions to present about your business. And they were needling me about not actually physically paying myself, and why I couldn't take the same amount of money I was paying on the credit card and physically write myself a check first from the business and then put it in my personal account. And I broke down, complete meltdown. I was the last person to go, and for the people I didn't know at all in the room. And it was funny how it was the same amount of money. It's just energetically, I needed to claim it and put it in my personal account and then pay the credit card, instead of just ignoring it, just letting the numbers flow from bank account to bank account. And that's part of what it is. You're energetically telling the business that you want it to support your life. And writing yourself a check, or these days, it can tend to be a transfer. But if nobody's really paying themselves, I encourage you to first start with physically writing yourself a check. And energetically, you're saying, business, this is what I need from you. This is what my household needs for us to show up. And there's something about getting yourself on a regular basis that will change how you appreciate your business. And it will change how you are looking at your business as being a contribution to your household. And again, if you're not paying yourself, it might have to start with, when I first started, it was, $100 a week. I had to play with whatever the cash flow would allow me to do, but I physically had to write myself a check. And I still do to this day, physically write myself a check to put it in my personal account and do things from there. So it's so big when people do that. I was working with a client who was paying herself, but she wasn't paying enough for her household. And so what I find a lot of the times for businesses is that we're drawing money out throughout the month, and we're not really claiming what our households actually need from the business. So we're using the business like a bank. The business doesn't understand what it means to be a bank. It wants you to identify, this is what I need. This is what the business expenses need. This is what we need to create. It can deal with that number. It can't deal with $100 withdrawal here and $300 here or $50 here. It's like you're all over the board. So when can you just claim what you need and then make yourself a payment twice a month, once a week, once a month, whatever your household cycle is. And then you'll have less stress in your household, and you'll appreciate the business more.
I love this concept. I knew it was deeper. It is so much deeper. And I love this concept of owning and claiming that money, because you're right. I mean, I remember days where I would take, X amount of dollars, but it wasn't even close to covering what we needed to at home. And so draws, right?
Mhm.
And so for everyone listening, that's basically when you take a withdrawal from the company and use it for something personal. And I never really thought about it in the way that you just explained it. It's really about energetically claiming that money and giving it someplace to go.
Yeah. And it just changes your whole persona. Again, the group, people, your listeners are experienced business owners. They've been in business, 3 to 5 to even 7 years or more. Once you get out of startup, this is a time to start looking at your cash handling and like really claiming what your business needs. Sure, in year 0 to 3, we probably aren't bringing a lot home unless this is the business that is the only household generation income. And we might reinvest a lot in those first 3 years. But this is about now saying, I'm the primary person of this business, and I'm the one that's keeping it going forward. And as the CEO, I want to see something contributed to my lifestyle, to my household. And it puts the business like it's finally here. The business is like, I can have my own purpose. I can keep going and growing and pay you, the CEO. And it also allows you then to, when you go to grow, start thinking of not only your salary, but what's it going to take to replace you in the business, like with a team member, and how you're going to grow your team. You want to make sure you include both, because when I first went to grow my business, I forgot to include me and the bookkeeper that was coming in to take over the work. And so then I never got paid because all the money just went to the bookkeeper. So
because at that point, then that whole guilt thing pops in, and you're like, well, I've made an obligation and I have responsibilities to pay this person, and it's easier to pay them than it is yourself.
Right.
And that narrative has to be shifted for sure.
It does. And again, it's going to be over time, and you want to see like every quarter that you're making strides to get to your ideal, whatever your household income is or whatever your wage needs to be. And that's why you may need to like look at your cash handling planning or your financial planner, aka the budget, in 3 ways. Where are you right now? Where are you starting? And then where do you want to grow into? And then again, your big vision, the big vision that you have for your business. On my website, I call it a big kahuna dream, but it's that big vision that you have. You may not know all the numbers that go into that, but at least you can start paying attention to it and plug in the numbers as it becomes more crystallized.
Amazing. So that leads perfectly into planning for growth, right? Like we talked about, in the startup phase, there's lots of planning, lots of excitement, but then you're kind of over that initial hump, and the growth phase needs just as much time, love, and attention. So what are some things that people should be paying attention to, and how do we implement planning in this growth phase?
Yeah, I will say that it's sometimes easier to have another person help you with this phase, because our ego will start talking a lot when we start to create the financial plan for growth. So just an FYI, sometimes that's somebody that's not emotionally attached can help pull these things out, or somebody that's a little bit ahead in business might be able to recognize expenses you may not have even thought of. For example, when you go to get commercial space, not only is it the rent, but there's also insurance, and there might be some repairs and maintenance that you might want to include in there. So first off is really looking at where you are right now, and what does that growth look like? Is it like just hiring new team members, virtual or in person, or is it like getting commercial space, or is it like you want to, I don't know, expand to a different state that you want to do in both states? Like you'll spend, I have one client that spends part of her time in New York and part of her time in California. So is it a big growth, or is it more smaller steps that you want to do? And then looking at will you get there? How will the marketing look like? What will the team look like? And again, you might not know what the numbers will be, but you could take a guess. You could ask people, other collaborators, or other, I'm drawing a blank, accountability partners that you might have that might be in a similar business, a coach might know. And then figure out most importantly, figure out what you need in there too, because there's probably an amount for your household at your bare minimum amount that you're doing right now, and what you would like to grow into. As you grow, you might need more self-care. You might need a massage every month. You might need some stress relieving there. So claim it, what that is. And then you figure out, once we know what the expenses are, then we can figure out what needs to be created. What does the sales need to look like? And what other line items I didn't talk about were make sure you save for taxes, because during growth, you are going to grow and owe tax. It's just going to happen. And I would recommend creating some type of profit sustainable account where you're keeping some cash in the business. So the next time you go to grow, you can fund it yourself. Because normally when we go to grow the first time, we'll have to lean into some type of debt, credit cards, savings. And wouldn't it be great when you go to grow later, you already have the money right there. Or if you ever want to add another team member, it's already there.
Amazing. So there's so many really good nuggets in here. Planning for yourself,
Mm-hmm.
planning for replacing yourself so that you don't always have to so the business isn't always having to rely on you. Something pops up that I'd love to dig into as well is how to price yourself in growth mode. Because as you were talking, I thought, oh, is this a really cool formula when you're talking about where you want to be financially, what is necessary, what you need for your household, all these things. Is that a blueprint for helping to how you price, or is there a different strategy that you like to take?
No, that's one of the first steps. And a lot of the times you'll work with a coach and they'll just start at the top line. And that's what I was lacking from the coaches I was getting at in the first couple of years, was that they only cared about what my top line revenue was. They didn't care what I was doing with it. And as a spender, everything that came in was gone. And so I really needed somebody to help me with the expenses as well. But we start with the expenses. And then the next thing I ask is like, what's your bandwidth? Because if you want to create a mid six-figure business and you're the only person delivering services, it's not that you can't do it. It's just that you're going to have to be really comfortable with your hourly rate or the package pricing being a little higher than your ego may initially think so. And so bandwidth is super important to consider. So you know how many workable hours that you have that you're going to be able to deliver services on, compared to what type of admin time you're going to do, what time you're going to take off for personal care and visioning and planning. That's one of the other key pieces before we even get to pricing. And then when you get to pricing, you know how much bandwidth, how much time you have, what your expenses are, and you've covered profit and savings and taxes all in that lump sum number. Then you can start looking at pricing or what your packages will look like, or what revenue generation will come in. And normally, though, that's done the opposite direction. And so it takes a little, like I said, it sometimes takes a little help to get there, just so somebody else can run the numbers and you as the entrepreneur can stay in that visionary mode and help guide where the numbers are going to go.
Yeah, I think that you're super right, and it usually happens the other way around.
Mm-hmm.
And it goes back to what we were talking about first. If you're not looking at your numbers and there isn't a plan there, and then you're just winging, well, I want to charge $295 or $15,000 or any number in between or above or below, it doesn't always add up, because if you're not looking at how much your expenses are and where the money needs to go, you may be grossly undercharging to achieve those goals.
Yeah, I think that's where we're taught, or at least I was taught early in business, about the competitor. One of the first things I would do in marketing was that, what are your competitors charging? And I remember in bookkeeping, I would charge what my competitors or other bookkeepers were charging. And then when I went to add commercial space and add a team, that rate didn't play anymore, because that rate didn't include any of those other expenses. And so then I did have to price up, and then I was the most expensive bookkeeper around because I had these other expenses to pay for, but I wanted to pay my team livable wages. So again, where's the priority? Where's your priority? How do you want to craft this business and the culture you want to create? And then that's what we're going to reflect. And we're going to educate people about, this is why we're doing this. So you'll see this more common today about, we pay our team livable wages and this is just what it is. But we can't always compare with what Barbara over there is charging for an online course doesn't take into any account if she's fresh and new off the boat, or if she is 20 years experienced and this is like her fifth class or online course that she's created, that she already had the platform and everything. We don't know those things looking out. So we can start with looking in and then pricing, and then looking at what our community, our clients are willing or have the ability to pay. We might need to adjust it a little bit, but really, if people desire and really want what you're serving, what you're offering, then the money will be found. So
Always.
yes.
The money will always be found when people will find a way to do the things that they want to do and that resonate the highest. So I'm so glad that you said that. And I'm also really glad that you pointed out that we were trained to immediately go to what everyone else is doing. Like, why aren't we trusting ourselves first? Like, why do we have to find out what everyone else is doing first and then build our plan accordingly? I mean, it's so ass backwards that again, I hadn't really sat and thought about it. You're dropping lots of really like amazing brain ninjas today, because it's true. And so initially you're taught not to trust yourself.
Yeah.
You must do what everyone else in the market is doing, regardless of how new or seasoned they are, what work that they've done or not done. And yeah, I think there's this really important time frame. Like, okay, if you want to see what people are paying for similar types of things, like I think there's a time to be inspired, but you got to shut it down, right? Because otherwise you're going to end up building somebody else's program and wondering why it's not working for you.
Right. So the better way is to look at your clients and ask them, what do they need? What would they really benefit from it that you could build? And the other part too, I struggled with a lot when I went to grow my business was, when you go to up level, and there's going to be a point in your growth that you're going to up level the services you're going to offer, it means that you're going to probably be changing the clients that you're going to work with. So when I first started my business, I worked with a lot of startup businesses, very similar in my same path. And then, 6 years, 7 years into my business, I had to work with more experienced. And now I work with clients that are really growing year 7 and above. And you have to be ready to not only up level what you're doing, but who you're going to work with as well. And so again, if we keep in the mindset of like, we're constantly serving 0 to 3 years, or we're constantly serving startup, and really our services are aimed at more experienced business owners, that's where the price can adjust there. And we have to be willing to up level and work with people, not maybe agree not to be the smartest person in the room, which is hard, but it's part of the growth process.
It is part of the growth process, and it doesn't happen overnight. I think sometimes people get really scared by that concept, that like I have to evolve my clients, as in all the people I'm currently working with have to go away, and then somehow I have to find new people. It's not a clean sweep of the table. I mean, maybe some people do it like that. More power to you, but typically it's an evolution. It's one client trickles off and another one starts to come in, or you let a client go to make space for a new one, or a lot of it's more of a perfectly curated dance versus a flipping the whole table over concept.
Yes, I so wanted to flip the table over.
Yeah, that's where patience as business owners really likes to test us, because it's like, all right, I'm ready. Like, now I'm ready. This is what I'm ready to do, but the surroundings don't always necessarily reflect that, and it takes time.
Yeah.
I have to remind myself of that too. What are some common mistakes, and what do you recommend as a solution for people in growth mode? So some common things that you see and how they can actually overcome this.
The first one is not having any type of plan. I did that as well. And I just, clients do it all the time. Let's just say that. And so it's one thing to realize I'm going to grow. Where really identify up front, where's the money coming from? Not, I'm going to build this as I grow. I've done that too. Uh, it's going to keep you in hustle mode, and you're going to burn out. So consider, where is the money going to come from before I go in, and just having some ideas. You don't have to have something already there, already created, but know what that idea looks like. And then the other piece would be, you're going to easily fall back in startup mode when you go to grow. You're going to get back into that hustle mode. But we're more experienced. We're a little older now. So what are you going to do to refill your cup? Making sure that you have downtime on your schedule, time to dream, time to plan, time to regroup with your household if that's what you need. Whatever you need, make sure it's on there and you prioritize that, because giving it all back to your business and to your clients means that you're not going to be sustainable for the long term, and you're not going to create a sustainable business. And then have regular money conversations, money dates, whatever you need to pay attention to where you're going. And for me, that's a weekly conversation. For some of my clients, it's twice a month. And if you have a bookkeeping team or a tax pro, just make sure they're all on the same table. Ask for guidance. And if they're not providing guidance, or they're not providing you with the numbers in a way you need to see them, then it's time to up level that as well. For bookkeeping, or if you have somebody doing the bookkeeping, they can do it weekly and provide you numbers. Or if you're doing it once a month, there's no reason they can't have it to you between the 10th and the 15th, so that you aren't already a month or 2 months behind and making decisions from numbers that are too old for you to make a decision. Yes. And then the last one probably would be, get some accountability. Another one or two other business owners that might be going through the same thing, so you can have actual conversations about it, and having that space to complain if you need to complain, or be that cheerleader for you when you really need somebody else to help cheer you on.
Accountability partners are everything because they do just that. They keep your ass accountable when, there's just something powerful when there's, even if it's one person or a small group of people, when you all have like-minded, goals, similar wants, similar values in life, you're all kind of marching to the beat of the same drum, even though it's different for each of you, the energy is the same. Mm-hmm. It is so empowering to be in that space. And even if I think even kudos if they're even further ahead of you, because that's empowering in its own, to be around people that are in a space that you're striving for. It's very powerful to share your goals, your knowledge, and your aspirations with like-minded people.
I agree. And again, you may have to up level that too as you go to grow your business. So yes. the networking you might have been doing may need to shift. And I think that's been my biggest hurdle, especially during COVID, is finding virtual networking where I am with like-minded people that are at the same level, or willing to grow, or looking at what I'm doing at the same pace. That's been a little bit harder to do. But COVID's going to end soon.
We'll get back to. Oh, COVID. Oh my goodness. Yeah. And you brought up a point too that I want to make sure everyone heard, is you make sure that you're working with a bookkeeper and or accountant that gets you. Mm-hmm. And that there's good synergy with and good energy with, and like they're on the same page as you. Because if you feel like you're dragging them along, or maybe they're just not the right fit. Maybe they started off as your accountant and you have just outgrown them. Like that happens all the time, every single day. But you have to, back to your point with the networking and the people that you're surrounding yourself with, your accountability partners, you have to know internally when that season has ended. And then you have to actively make a decision to shift it. Otherwise, you stay there. Mm-hmm.
Yes. And that's part of being empowered with your numbers, is making new choices for your finance team. Again, energetically, I had a team member that was unwilling to use a tool that I knew was going to propel my business forward. And so he went on vacation, and the tool practically implemented itself while he was gone. And so I had to like come to grips that this wasn't the right team member anymore. I had to up level it again. And that's the same with your tax pro. They can hold you back, or you feel shame when you go to see them. So why is that? We want to be empowered with our finance team. We want them to provide us guidance, not just make us feel like we're going to the principal's office. So
yes. Oh my gosh, I'm saying yes so loud because I can remember so distinctively feeling like there was a big money decision that I was making. And my first thought was, I'm not going to even tell them. Mm-hmm. And then immediately I was like, oh shit, I have to change accountants. I have to. If that's the energy that's coming along with it, we are no longer in alignment.
Right. Yeah. And a lot of the times we forget about this. So people, you may have had a recent experience with your tax pro. Maybe you got to put on extension and you just had your taxes done back in October. And then we'll forget about it because it won't come up again until April or so. And it's amazing what my clients forget between having that trigger issue and then the pause between the cycles, and then it'll start over again. They'll have the same issue a year later. So if you're triggered at all, that's the time to start asking for referrals and having a conversation. It costs nothing but your time to reach out and check other practitioners and sit down and have a conversation and just see what their concepts are. Because communication is the biggest thing for your finance team. They have to have an ability to communicate and not talk over you, but educate you all at the same time.
Absolutely. Do you have any final parting advice, suggestions, or guidance about planning for the growth phase for our listeners?
Yeah. If you dreamt it, if you've had a vision of it, make it happen, because you were given a gift to have this vision and this culture changing idea that you have. So it's out there. And so we just need to take action. And the action does start with being aware and knowing what your numbers are so that you can build that sustainable platform to move. But the world needs women entrepreneurs to get out there and do their big thing. And so do the growth. Just, it's not going to be perfect and you're going to learn a lot, and know that on the other side, though, is going to be the business or the vision that you have dreamt of. It might look a little different, but it's going to be there. And so go out and do it and get as much support as you need.
Oh, I love it. That's such great advice. Connie, I'd love to know, what does the word gutsy mean to you?
Okay, well, I think I was more gutsy, but when I turned 40, it was kind of like that. Gutsy really is the moment when I said yes to being an entrepreneur. It was like saying yes to what that internal dream was. It was stepping out and saying, no, we can't do it this masculine way, or changing the CPAs that weren't giving me the advice I needed to hear, or belittling what I wanted to do. Gutsy is being, sometimes it's being the bitch in your own life. It's being that empowered person to go out and get what you really want. And it's okay. We are human beings. We desire. Gutsy is about us owning that.
Oh, boom. That is a new answer I've not heard, and I love it. I love, love, love that. Connie, I can't thank you enough for sharing your knowledge with us today. And I just want to thank you and applaud you for being so open and vulnerable about your story and owning and honoring that part of you. And now you've turned around and are teaching and guiding other women how to shift and grow their business. I mean, I just think it's absolutely incredible. And thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you for having me. It was a great conversation. Anytime, Laura, you want to have more gutsy conversations, let's do it.
You got it. You got it. All right. Thanks so much, Connie.
Thank you.
On Thursday, I want to encourage you to take your power back by undoing the fact that you're hiding from your money. This is no shame, okay? I want you to put that shit away right here, right now. This is not about saying, oh, I should have, oh, I did this, oh, I did that. No, we're going to undo that. We're going to honor You just heard Connie talk about honoring where you are, honoring who you are. You're going to honor where you are with your numbers and build a healthier habit. I want you to take your power back by creating a money day and creating a healthy habit that ultimately helps you to shift your entire financial path. Every month, online, masterclasses, you, me, and a bunch of other female entrepreneurs who are in the same mindset to grow your business, to take your power back, to stand in who you are, speak the way that you speak, think the big, beautiful things that you think. So every month, join me at lauraora.com. You can sign up for all upcoming masterclasses. In the meantime, get social with me on TikTok and Instagram using @thatlauraora. And as always, until I see you next time, stay gutsy.